Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to start the panel discussion. I would like to invite our distinguished panelists by name, and I would like them to come to the stage and take their seats, please. I would start with Mr. Niluka Gunathilaka, Head of Cards, Nations Trust Bank, PLC. I'd like to say that there is no order of priority or preference. I've just got the names as they were mentioned. Mr. Tharaka Ramwala, Senior DGM Operations and Group Chief Marketing Officer, Sampath Bank. Mr. Tharanga Gunasekara, Head of Marketing and Communications, HSBC. Mr. Harshad Gunasekara, Deputy General Manager, Marketing, Commercial Bank. And our own chef, entrepreneur, and restaurateur, Mr. Darshan Munidasa, Vice President, CCRC. And Mr. Harpa Gururatna, restaurateur and President, CCRC. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Chilman Jain, Principal, Boston Consulting Group, who is in the audience today on our invitation. Thank you for your presence. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Nista Qasim, the editor and CEO of Daily FT, who will be moderating the panel discussion. Over to you, Nista. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this discussion, we will open the forum for a Q&A to the audience. So if you have any questions or suggestions to the panel, that's your time to take part. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh. I'm privileged to moderate a panel like this. I think it's first of its kind. So I'd like to thank everyone for agreeing to our joint idea of having this forum. I just want to set the stage in terms of how we're going to conduct this session. It's not a one-way learning here, but I want the audience to engage as well. Bring your issues, because we have got the banks and the restaurants, so I'm sure the banks are also waiting to learn from the industry. As I said, it's going to be a more interactive, a thought leadership. Therefore, I will moderate that two-way conversation. I'd like to ask the panel, actually, some interesting statistics were discussed. What's the level of engagement, collaboration at present? And do you see the collaboration more inspiring to do more engagements, more value creation? And I want some initial remarks from each of the panelists. Niluka, yeah.
Yes. So thank you very much. So thank you very much. In terms of collaboration, I think it's happening already. Like Rajesh and also the gentleman from the Boston Consulting Group mentioned. I think most of the time what we need to do is this collaboration from the banks as well as the restaurants needs to happen, in my opinion, to a little bit more. Especially in terms of, today, if you look at a customer, the same customer can be a bank or a card customer as well as the restaurant customer. So some data we have of the customer. For example, we will know what sort of a customer this is, at what level that we can set this customer and all that. But at the same time, the restaurant will also see something that we don't see. So like they mentioned previously also, if we can collaborate this data together and understand the customer, I think we can create more value to this customer as well as to both partners. That's what I think from my side.
Tharaka, yeah.
I believe I can be heard. Thanks, Nista. And I think taking on from what Niluka said, I think collaboration is happening. There is no two words about it. However, I also echo the same sentiments of what Niluka said. I think we need to go beyond what we are doing. Again, I think with restaurants and all our partners, we see pre-COVID and post-COVID, there were ups and downs. But this collaboration, I think what is important is that for us to understand how we make use of what we call the data that we have and making sure that you drive it through to give a consistent experience to our customers. So it will be customers of the banks as well as customers of the restaurants. I think that is where we need to take this into, and I think if you really look at what the gentleman from BCG mentioned and even Mani said, we need to go beyond what we are doing and see that experience happening on a more consistent basis, and that's what I think is
Okay.
I have to say.
Thanks. Taranga?
Firstly, thank you, CCRC and LAFT for the invitation. So, I think basically I've seen a lot of, I've been working with a lot of partners, and over the last 10 to 12 years, we've seen a lot of revolutionary stuff, and now we see a lot of evolutionary stuff. And I can say that over the last few years, where it's probably heading is in probably not the right direction. The reason I say that is because we are looking at it from a consumer point of view, from a really a transactional view, not an experiential view. And I think holistically, we are not probably doing it together. So I guess that's where probably we have an opportunity to do that. I'd like to share some examples because I think we basically champion the cause a lot in Sri Lanka for dining as a brand. And I think we have some fantastic examples, case studies to share as well. I'm quite on board with what Rajesh also mentioned in terms of using data. I think data is kind of the key for us to crack this code, and I can tell you some examples maybe later on, Mr., when it comes to case studies.
Yeah. Hasrat?
Thanks, Sista. Card promotions with restaurants have been one of the first type of promotions that we have seen in the country. Cards starting to do joint promotions, and the first category, I believe, which came on board were restaurants. The other categories came much later. And over the years, we have seen credit cards and debit cards in terms of card numbers also increasing in the country, and also in usage. You see huge exponential growth in terms of card usage or the plastic usage. The same way, I'm sure the team from this side will agree, there have been more restaurants coming, especially I would see in the city of Colombo. And till the COVID pandemic happened, I'm sure they would have seen increased sales. So these two parties have grown together, the way I have seen it. And I think the collaboration has been good. I would see all the card offering banks having regular promotions with restaurants. Some have season, some have ongoing, some have segmented approaches. From a partnership perspective, I think both banks and restaurants have benefited from this collaboration.
Okay.
So let me start by saying thank you to all banks for working with us for the last so many years. I've been someone who's on the other side of the fence, that all of you all know I never gave a discount at some of my restaurants. And after COVID, that changed. But the reason we are here today is I see discounts saturating. The previous speaker spoke of discount scavengers. We see people coming like a blackjack dealer throwing cards, which one has a discount. And I agree with Taranga, this has to go beyond that. It has to be more experiential. It has to be more, have the look and feel of it being personal. And to do that, we need your participation, collaboration in terms of data. There's a lot more to be done. It's a space that you need us, we need you, and we need to join hands and work, make this go beyond discounts. And I think today is a good start for us to discuss all this.
Yeah. Harpo?
Yeah. What I have come to see over the years is how the collaboration has become more serious with the restaurants right now. Earlier on it was not so serious. uh, they would never collaborate with us and say, okay, we will share the discount with you guys. I see that has made a big difference as well, because otherwise it was always our bottom line getting hit when we give discounts. So I'm very happy to see at least the banks coming on board, the cards coming on board and doing joint promotion. I think that's very, very important. Otherwise, we were at the butt end of all the discounts, but I'm happy to see that happening now, and we can talk about that further, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you. I just like to ask the audience whether do you see that collaboration happening? Is it happening in your restaurants? If not, what are the real issues? Okay, I think there is consensus that more can be done. Why is it happening? What are the real bottlenecks in furthering this collaboration? I mean, from an industry perspective, is there any certain risks that is involved? Or you feel that the restaurants are not creative enough? Or I like to see whether the restaurants feel the banks are basically making the money. I just want to sort of take this issue from the panel as to where do you see the problems from which side?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, yes, please.
See, I think, Nisai, it's a good question, right? I think the real issue comes in with when you look at the type of businesses the both entities are in. You look at banks and you look at restaurants, there is a responsibility for the bottom line per se. So that comes into play first. I think, now I'm talking not like a banker, but I'm trying to talk like a marketer more, right? The first thing which we need to do is that we need to understand what are we trying to give to our consumer, the card customer as well as the restaurant customer. That is where the experience and the relation comes into play. When that is understood and that comes into the forefront, taking this beyond the discount is very easy. Today, how I see it, I'm pretty sure my other colleagues also add on to it, how I see today is that both sides are looking at the bottom line first. I'm not saying leave the bottom line aside. I'm saying bottom line will come as a result of the experience and the relationship that you build. You put that into the forefront, I think taking this beyond becomes very easy. Then everything else that we all decode, the data usage, proximity-based marketing, making the customer feel so centric, all that comes as part of it. That's what I think.
Yeah. Do you agree that I think the restaurants feel that they have been waiting too long for the bottom line to improve? Is that the case from the restaurant side? Any intervention from the audience? I mean, Taraka says you have to wait. The bottom line will improve over a period of time. But is there patience, or have you all waited enough? I want from the panel as well as from the audience. Please raise your hand. There's some mics available, so let's learn from you as well.
Add to what you were saying earlier?
Yeah, go ahead.
So let me add to what Harp was saying earlier about the discounts and where our bottom line is very important that we need to protect. We also see the banks competing with each other. So Bank A comes with discount A to us, Bank B comes with trying to do better because they want to get the better deal for the customer. And there was a time that eventually we were funding everything, and we had not gained anything.
Okay. Yeah.
I also believe that value addition is a better way to go because plain vanilla discounts, as the previous speakers gave out, reduces service charge, reduces VAT that the government earns because everything goes down. So I think that part also is something that we as restaurateurs and you, the service provider of the finance side, that we need to be responsible and about it and think of those socioeconomic terms also.
Okay, fine. Yes.
So if I can add, I think we got to end of the day, it's all about consumer, right? So we all wake up in the morning and we wonder, what does he really want? So if I go back like 12 years, I'll just kind of show you this whole thing I mentioned about revolution and evolution. So I think it's about 12 years ago when we looked at the data and we found, unlike today, if we wanted to, increase our portfolio, we have obviously all of us have credit cards. We found that dining was the single-minded driver to onboard a client. And we saw if you look at a diner versus a non-diner, there's a massive incremental. So we said, let's get people dining, because that's how we can probably get more customers on board. So what we did was we actually created, and with a very strategic view, to kind of get more cardholders. And that's, I think, about 12 years ago, we launched something called Cardholder Dines Free. It really got the market buzzing, and we kind of tripled our diners in the portfolio. And obviously that really left us in good stead. But we couldn't really sustain that, as the two gentlemen from the restaurant industry said. So that's where we kind of needed to evolve. And we really looked at the data again, and we saw, look, I mean, over years, have they really gone through this whole dining momentum? They didn't. So we saw that if you really look at by segment, it's about being relevant to the segment. As probably Rajesh said, I mean, you can't, in this segment of consumers, there are different benefit sorts. So there is what we call the value seekers, who are really looking at value. And we can't really, have the whole value seeker behavior expanded to the entire restaurant chain. It's not going to be sustainable. But then also there are experience seekers. I'm sure no one comes to Darshan's restaurant and asks for a discount, right? They come for their experience. They select the size of the crab, right? Not the percentage. And also they have moments that they like to celebrate. So, I mean, obviously the consumer is like evolving in this space, and I think we can't really sustain, it has to be done with a purpose. So one of the things we did many years ago, I'm sure Darshan will remember, is we wanted to get people dining. And one of the things we did was we, in fact, tied up with the most unheard of, stakeholder you might think of, the Sri Lanka Tourist Board. And we got all the restaurants together, and we created something called World Spice Food Festival. We had all the hotels in Colombo going on this promotion. We flew down chefs from each country, and each hotel was assigned a specific, specialty chef. And people just loved it. So they came for the experience. Nowhere did we have a conversation on price there.
Price, okay, fine, yeah. Yes, okay. Wait till the mic comes, because otherwise people at the back won't be able to hear.
That's a good example, the World Spice Festival. What happened there was like the hotels got the benefit of it, but the restaurateurs, the individual entrepreneurial restaurateurs got left behind. And the trend across the world is people go out to dine to independent restaurants, not to hotels. It is just a fad in Sri Lanka. It's considered posh to go to a 5-star restaurant and say, I'm going there. But if you really look at the quality and the variety of food offered, the independent restaurants actually have a much wider selection. So maybe in future, something to take away from today will be to involve the independent restaurants next time you organize something like that. So that we could also contribute to it. Especially the CCRC can be, as a collective, a part of an initiative like that.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dinesh. Any more inputs from the members? Yeah, yes.
Hi, yeah. My question is actually regarding the concept of discount scavengers. If there is some sort of like concept of way that you can come up with to reduce that. Because I would get a lot of, when I do bank promotions now and then, I would get a lot of people that come and it's just one-off. Like there's no repeat customers per se.
Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
I want Rajesh also to share some inputs here. One about whether you can respond to that first. And maybe the panel also can respond to that.
Thanks, Mr. Check. Yeah, so before I get into the discount scavenger, I'll add a few observations, right? One is, I think, even as CCRC, it's important for us to segment our members, right? And I'm not too sure, I mean, I'm being very honest, it's probably my ignorance. Because within your own member category, there might be some fine dine, and there might be some that's mass, right? It could be a QSR. And I would suspect if somebody goes to a QSR, he would be a value seeker. And discount is definitely going to drive him. We may wish to hate away this concept, but you need to understand that we are living in the world of instant gratification. people do look for discounts. Think of the day when you guys shop online. You will still look for a discount on Daraz, won't you? So why should our consumers behave differently? So which is why I think we need to be slightly more scientific. A lot of these questions are emotional, and I do understand that. We all run businesses, and end of the day, bottom line is very important. We do it for that, right? But I think we will have to take a step back, keep the emotion out of this, see how we can segment. And like a lot of the panelists said, right? We have rich data sitting with us. How can we use this to dissect, slice and dice, arrive at that segment which appeals to us most, and see what drives him. Like you were just pointing out, right? Nobody goes to Darshan's place and tell, listen, I want a discount. What drives him is something very different. But I would suspect he also seeking something, an experience, which may not necessarily be a discount. So that's going to be my submission to the team. That's point number one. Yeah. And the second thing I want to ask all the restaurants here, the owners here, that increasingly, and I was talking about this, right? There is a shift where people are looking at grocery chains for food items. I mean, this is a challenge that is going to become big going forward. And I think as a team, as a collective, we will have to necessarily think about this, how you want to address it. And one way could probably be you organize a DIY, I mean, a do-it-yourself week, or do-it-yourself day. Okay, I'm opening up my bake house. Okay, customers come in, bake the vanilla cake you want. I mean, you can charge for that, right? I mean, we just need to get creative about how do we address this challenge is my submission.
Thanks, Rajesh. Anyone wants to respond to the scavengers? Yeah.
I hope your question was...
No, that was not answered. Anybody in the panel about, Hasrat?
Yeah, I would like to talk about the point. I'll answer the question of that lady. The point what Rajesh mentioned, it's about loyalty, right? So the cards, we issuing banks wants to make sure that our cards are frequently used. So we are in a competitive space. We want our card being used more often than our competitors' card. That's a fact, right? We are all into business. The same way restaurants have their own targets set in. They would want more people dining in their restaurants. Now there's a slight difference between the cards and the restaurants. I don't know, the gentleman from this side can answer my question. How many people would like to go to the same restaurant often? Big question. Whether they would like to go to the same restaurant repeatedly. Unlike a card, where we would want the card being used repeatedly, be it in restaurants or any other place. So the answer to Darshan's question, the card schemes are always competitive. They would like to outdo the other to make sure that their customers get the best benefit, and also that they keep using their card more often. But when it comes to the restaurants, it's slightly different ballgame. Right? Even if you want to get them coming, how often would they want to come to the same restaurant? Because it's food habits and preferences, variety, all that comes into play. Right? So that's a slight difference between the two, the business aspects of things. Answering the question, what she mentioned, yes, we as banks would like if customers go and dine over and over again. It really doesn't matter whether they go to the restaurant A or B as far as we are concerned, as far as the card is used. But from a restaurant perspective, they would like to attract more people coming to their restaurant. And she's very correctly said, not many repeat purchases. So I see another area, as Rajesh mentioned, have this whole value addition, experiential thing, do your own cooking kind of things. Also, restaurants also can, we spoke of data, all that. Restaurants also can go a step further in terms of doing database marketing. They have the databases of their regular customers. They can send some SMSs. I see some restaurants doing it, right? I know point of sale is cumbersome. You don't have space to put X stands and desk stands and all that. But nowadays you have the digital medium, the social media, right? So we see a lot of activity happening from the card schemes. Now, if I may take an example, the Aurudu season, which is Aurudu starting from about 1st April, the card issuing banks have started the promotions from mid-March. Everybody has gone and put up hoardings, right? Advertising, full-page paper advertisements, a lot of money being spent to promote, right? The same way the restaurants also can do their own bit of marketing. Then, obviously, that clientele who they patronize them regularly will start looking at them at a repeat visit.
I still think no one answered your question.
Yes.
Somebody else
can I
take the
try?
answer.
Yeah.
You are right, and I see it all the time. The moment you give one discount to one bank, the next one is right behind them. And it can be the same or a little bit better. We might get 5% of the discount paid back to us. My biggest fear has been that card diner will not come back until we repeat the promotion. And we see that. So there have been many instances that I actually would not give a discount.
Yeah, but
Then your value is out there in its whole form, not to be discounted, not to be competed by by card issuers. But again, that is your choice. That is my choice. But after COVID and all that, I think things have changed a lot. Information goes out faster. The data you speak of, we do not have access to. We have to work with you to get access to that data. So we are also sometimes shooting in the dark when you are talking to us. So I think today's forum is how do we go beyond that? Because, like I said, we need you, you need us. So let's work harder and try to answer her question much better.
Anyone in the audience can answer that question? Any volunteers? Okay. What about, I'm asking about in the industry, about, Hasan did mention about more card users are spending at different multiple points. But what about the restaurants themselves in terms of, what about, how do you build loyalty at your level? What measures do you all do so that you will ensure that they come over and over to your restaurant?
Can the banks support us in rewarding loyalty? Instead of everybody who comes once gets 25% off, for example, right? You guys have the data that you can track, right? Like Rajesh, the first day we met, Rajesh said, I'm not in the business of cards, I'm in the business of data. Sorry. So you guys can manage that data. What if we reward loyalty for people who consecutively go to, let's say, Darshan's restaurant, the 5th, 6th visit, you get a reward, right? A substantial reward, where then the restaurant has actually benefited from having that customer frequenting the place. Okay. I own Sugar Bistro, Sugar Beach. We have a lot of reward customers, a lot of repeat customers, and they don't get rewarded. Somebody who comes with one card offer gets that discount. Instead, all of us in here, I'm sure we have repeat customers, right? I would rather reward a repeat customer than a one-off guy who is just coming for scavenging. Yeah.
No, what I'm asking is, do the restaurants add value to the repeat customer? How do you add value?
No, Anista, can I?
Yeah.
I think what he's trying to say is that whether the banks could add value.
Yeah, I know that.
Using repeat. See, can I answer that?
Yes.
Actually, that is what I said at the start. I think we need to look at this whole proposition from the customer experience point of view. I'm fully with Darshan on this. Once you know that your proposition is getting your customers to have the experience, all what we discussed, including scavenging, can be taken out of the equation. For example, every bank has different target segments, right? So we have a top-notch segment that we have, maybe very small compared to, say, HSBC, Sampath being a retail bank for the masses. So that particular segment, we use Darshan's restaurant, no discounts, but purely going there from an experience point of view, and he and I have a collaboration going beyond the discount, right? Now that I would attribute to something what Taranga said on the World Spice Festival. HSBC does it because they're a global bank. Now, for me to want of an example, Sampath Bank probably can look at local Spice Festival and look at all the other restaurants locally, indigenously here with your first question, and create something like that from an experiential point of view. I think in order to get there, I come back to my first question. Now you need to start thinking and understanding exactly what we need to do or what we want to do as bankers. Now I'm being a little diplomatic here by holding up some of the information because I have my learned competitors here. So you need to go there, and I'm pretty sure almost all of us here, for sure, are looking at that to going in. So we may take, depending on how our directors and the boards and our thinking is fast enough, how fast we will get there. But I'm telling you, that is what is on the cards. Very openly, I think we all agree that discounts is not the way forward. And we are trying to work it out to see how we need to move forward.
Yeah. Is this discounts like tick the box exercise in the banks? Is it so becoming very generic now? I mean, there is no innovation, right? It's just tick.
Before you start, can I answer that? Because we deal with a lot of retailers. It becomes tick a box because you have say 400,000 cardholders. Good 70% of that is just waiting for that. And you need to start changing their mindsets. That also is part of what the banks, along with your partners, need to do. So I think it's
So you're saying if we all stop discounts, we'll have a solution?
Well,
Yes and no.
Okay.
it's yes and no. Maybe, sorry.
We'll stop if you stop.
Yeah.
So, Nisa, if I can add, I think it's about changing the conversation from conversation.
Yeah, no.
From, I think, changing the currency rather, from a discount to something different. So let me give an example. I think about 3 years ago, I can say with a lot of comfort, we actually took a very bold move to stop discounts. And a lot of our partners are not pleased. And the reason for that is because we actually looked at the data a bit more deeper than we ever did. And we found that there's really no reason for this kind of game to, to go beyond a certain point, because we found that the data shows otherwise. Unfortunately, I can't share some of those data, but we saw the data really, shed light on a completely different dimension. And what we did was we looked at that data and we created a value prop for that. So the point I'm trying to make is we changed the conversation from a discount to a different conversation. And I think basically, if I can say it, we created something called cashback, right? Because that's really what's relevant for 40 to 50% of that customer spend pattern. Okay. So why are we really going on something that and creating this, big, kind of dimension which is not really relevant? And Dinesh, to your point, if I try to do that, what I did 10 years ago, it's not going to work because the whole thing has shifted. Today, maybe we need to think about, playing on not the discount, but also maybe the loyalty space. And one of the things we do well is we have created a massive loyalty scheme, which is the HSBC rewards. We have about 100 of the partners where the customer just goes and redeems points online. So at that point, he's not really thinking about a discount. It's probably redeeming something he has already, allocated thanks to his spend. So I think we're kind of trying. I think it's about time to change the concept.
Definitely, yeah. We also have in the panel Ms. Jane from Boston Consulting. Would you like to sort of chip in terms of? You have a question, okay.
This is a question largely for the bankers on the panel.
Yeah.
I think globally what we've seen is that in order to take the conversation beyond discounts, and we were talking about personalized offers, and you're talking about how do we use the data that we have a bit better, I think you need foundational capabilities of having the analytics as well as the personalization engines at the banks, which could be ready to support this exercise. So just wanted to get a sense around how are the banks thinking about building their own analytics and personalization capabilities, and where on the journey, do they think they are? And typically, when Boston Consulting Group, advises banks, we always say look at a use case based approach to see which use case of analytics gives you the maximum value. And if that's what you guys are doing, then would this use case of restaurants collaboration be on the top of your list?
Okay, excellent. Anybody in the panel? Yeah.
So, in terms of data, I think the banks have already started on their journey. All banks and have gone through a lot. I think most of the banks here as well as even outside, we have data analytics departments itself. So these guys, the job from morning to evening is just looking at the data, dissecting into different pieces, analyzing, understand what can be done, and also pass on to the business teams, which are like us, saying, okay, these segments are there, these are the things that you can do. So right now also what we do is, if you look at our customer segment, like everybody here said, so we have different set of customers. Just like if you look at the restaurants in the country, you don't have everything in one, you can't put everything in one bucket. You have different buckets. Similarly, what we do is, our customers also we put into different buckets, and we try to match it with the restaurant in the way that we understand today. Just like what we said, up to now, we have not collaborated a lot of data, but in the way that we understand, okay, these are for example, out of, let's say, there are 20 restaurants, we say, okay, these 5 must be falling into one category or one size. So then we try to match the customers based on that. Similarly, the analytics are such that we can today say, okay, typically what's the set of customers who will dine 3 times a week, or who are the people who dines in the weekend only, who are the people who dines only on Friday, or these are the type of people who will, for example, on a weekend they will go to a very high class restaurant, but on a weekday they might do a takeaway. So all those data is already available with us. And right now also what we do, of course discount is still there, and for certain categories, like Rajesh said, they are looking at instant gratification. So in our segment also, for the type of people that we know are looking for instant gratification, we are not going to talk about curating experiences and all that. Fine, we'll give you a discount. So that will, at least they'll come to, they'll go and dine, while the other segment who's not really interested in discounts, and there is, like you said very correctly, there is a segment of customers who don't want discounts. If somebody is discounting, they don't want to go there. They think, when it's discounted, there will be so many people coming in there, it'll have an impact on my privacy, and they don't want to go there. So there is a set of customers for whom we curate in a different way. We curate experiences, plus even in the past, during even lockdown and after post-lockdown, we did something like, bringing the experience to your home. So the same experience we created at home through a delivery that we do, and it's not like a normal, like a, Uber or Pick Me delivery, but with a star class delivery that we set it up at your home for that experience. So those are the things that we have done. And in terms of the previous question, how we can help, we as all financial institutes, we have a lot of customers that we have built loyalty throughout the years. Because it's, I think predominantly because it's financial related, our customers we see are more loyal. They hardly, of course they will have multiple cards, but in terms of banking, they don't necessarily keep on switching from bank to a bank. So all these loyal customers, what we can do is, we can bring to your doorstep. We can, because they trust us during all these years, when we say, okay, this is, we set up a restaurant or whatever and say, there's a nice offer, this is the experience that you can go get there, they seem to trust us and we can bring to your doorstep. So beyond the doorstep, unfortunately, we don't see what happens inside, and it's I think, in your interest that you need to create something unique to those customers that they keep on coming. So like we discussed, whether they will repeat, it depends on how can you be creative on that. Not necessarily a discount, but can you do, for example, dish of the month or chef's special dish for this week, something like that, then people will keep on looking for that special dish or the special category and see, okay, what's happening this month and can we go there? Yeah. So that's what I think we can do.
Excellent. I think there is a sort of Chinese Great Wall between the banks' data versus the restaurants, I think. Will the banks really go to an independent individual restaurant and share that data and really sit down and, do something like that? Are you all willing?
Yes. So we do that, Mr.
I know.
Conversation, say, yes. Perhaps
you might do with the
data. And say, these are the segments, here are the customers, here is the opportunity we have, here are the repeat customers, here are the new customers. So we have those conversations.
Okay. I don't know from which restaurant the lady who asked the question, what's your restaurant? Or?
Chambers.
Okay, Chambers. Would you, in that decision, do you really go for the big ticket restaurants, or would you sort of do a curated one for someone like a small time, a new person?
So I think the missing link also, maybe data driven again, is, we really at this point of time, we are not really sure. Of course, there's a huge disruption that happened post lockdown, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the shift now is bring it home and dine at home. I guess that's where the Ubers and the Pick-me's are really thriving. Now, we don't really know how that's going to expand further and come to a more kind of a footfall situation. And I guess if we have to do that together with the industry, so be it. Yeah. But I think what's important is, as Niluka said, is I think it's about time. I mean, look at the classic example. Why do people follow in big numbers, viewership-wise, all the MasterChef series around the world? And I can tell you, we actually partnered with a couple of partners, and we bought Marco Pierre White down, Angela Lawson down, and some of those pricing, no one asked for a discount. They basically wanted to come and just take that selfie and have experienced that dish. So I think if you can go to that kind of dimension, I guess in this space, I think everyone has a huge equity. I'm sure all of some restaurants have equity, but I think in the larger scheme of things, I guess it's about creating a unique positioning and also driving that equity so that people would probably change that conversation from, give me something of value, so more from value for me to value of me. I guess that's a conversation we need to have.
Excellent. Rajesh, I'll come. There's a question there. I'll come back to you. Yes.
It's not working. Hello?
It's working. It's working.
Yeah. So my question to the banks is, as more businesses moving towards Uber Eats and Pick Me Foods, how do you all know what type of pattern are you seeing changing in terms of the customer spend? Are they spending more time at home, more on those platforms? Because you guys lose the data there where you don't know which restaurant they're dining at. So how are you tracking that and how are you analyzing that?
So we've seen some, during the lockdown and post-lockdown, we've seen the trend. So we see where it's going. You're right, we don't really see which section or which type of cuisine they're kind of really trending towards. But what we basically looked at is that is typically a consumer seeking convenience. So it's a convenience seeker saying, look, I don't care about the experience, I don't care about the value, I need the convenience, right? So I guess, what we did probably as banks is we said, okay, we'll take that delivery charge off. So he's happy. So I think little things like that, I'm sure that would have helped more, propensity for some of the restaurants. But I guess that's a conversation probably we need to have differently, because that's probably where it's heading in the market as well to a certain degree. So
just to add on to what Taranga says, I think it's maybe a little too premature and early for us to sort of analyze that data also. Even from a convenience point of view, we will probably know exactly what they want and the kind of drives they have, but we may not have the data per se as of now to analyze it further. So as we go on, maybe we may, but then again, like what Taranga says, the experience seeker going into a restaurant and having it versus somebody who wants to get it in, they are only looking at the convenience, right? So basically we will as banks will cater to that.
Okay. Yeah, there is one. Okay, I like this flow. There is a question here. Rajesh, can you just wait? I'll take you.
Hi. So just following up on the delivery point, I have a question, and I have a separate question on the unrelated point. So on the delivery question, you look at the restaurant industry, you've got two types of participants. You've got the vast majority, which are kind of mom and pop individual restaurants, and you've got a few who are fortunate and slightly larger. When you talk about delivery, it's a trend that's here to stay, and essentially, when you look at the delivery platforms, they charge a pound of flesh, and the smaller guys are not able to kind of say no to that, right? It's your lifeline, particularly in this context of post-COVID and Easter and all of that. It is their single biggest lifeline. So question number one is there something that the banks can do to play a role to keep the delivery platforms honest when they deal with the mom and pops, right? Because what you can do, for example, is, if you say, look, we use this credit card, for example, or this thing, you keep the delivery platform honest on what they charge the small mom and pops, and the mom and pops in return will encourage their customers to use that brand of card. So that's one question. Is there something that you all can do with your bargaining power to keep the delivery platforms honest? Sorry if I made the...
Yes.
second question was, I've heard a lot so far tonight about, where we're trying to move away from discounts, and discounts is really about, if you think about the pie as a fixed pie, if HSBC is getting it, then Sampat Bank's not getting it, Sampat Bank's not getting it, then NTB is getting it, etc., and you're trying to slice that same pie. But, one thing that the presentation earlier, I think from BCG had talked about was increasing frequency and increasing the basket size. Right, and I think that's what we're trying to move towards. I still haven't heard, great ideas that help us really, there are some nice ideas about the spice market and, bringing down Nigel Lawson, who is it, but really sort of helping, again, the vast majority of people in the room. Like, how can we, come up with a scheme that helps increase basket size or increase frequency? I'd love to figure that out from your side, because that's what I want the banks to be focusing on as a problem, because that's the focus that that the restaurants have, not, is it Sampat or NTB, because then you end up in the scavenger behavior. And I'm sorry, the last thing is on the state of play for restaurants, right? So the state of play for restaurants is everyone, whether they're small or big, is in a battle for survival. Banks provide a lifeline from a funding perspective. I know we're not here to talk about funding, but whenever you go to a bank, the conversation that starts off with is collateral, right? You are in a unique position, particularly from where the four of you sit, to see the cash flows that these restaurants are generating. Right, and this may not be for everybody, but certainly for certain restaurants of a certain scale that used to have a cash flow of so much and now have dwindled, but are regaining that. I mean, we're seeing that in the industry. Things are coming back. I would say that today cash flows are at the best level that they've ever been in the last 12 months. It's still a far cry from where it used to be, but you're seeing that coming back. Can you as banks look at cash flow and provide some sustenance or support for restaurants in this environment? Sorry, there was a long...
Yeah, that's fine. Very good point. Very good. Okay.
I can take the last one.
Panel, you like to take 3 questions?
Can I take the last question?
Yes.
From a banking perspective?
Yeah.
I think a very good question. First and foremost, I need to tell you, if you really look at, I'm talking from Sampat Bank perspective, up until the pandemic, Sampat Bank was predominantly a cash flow based lending kind of an institution. When we lend, we seriously look at the cash flow. For example, when we have a restaurant where we have done the merchant acquiring, we have all the data on the merchant acquiring, although the lending party might be one of the branches or our corporate banking or whatever, we look at the merchant acquiring business and come to an understanding as to the cash flow of that particular restaurant. However, the pandemic and the regulators, certain regulations, plus the skyrocketing non-performing in the industry actually have got the banks shifting more towards security-based lending. You need to understand from a bank's perspective, we take the depositors' money and then lend it out. So we have a responsibility towards that as well. However, from a credit evaluation perspective, we always look at the cash flow, and I know for a fact that although, for example, corporate credit might be looking at a customer like, say Darshan's restaurant, but they immediately check with our card center where the merchant acquisition is, and they look at the cash flow, because then it becomes one single business as far as the bank is concerned. So we look at the cash flows. However, the lending perspective in this environment, I think, has shifted more towards the security-based lending, although we would like to keep the cash flows going in. But when you're doing the analysis, that actually is taken into as a factor.
Thanks. There was a question at the back. Yes.
Thank you. It's more along the lines of what Hiran just asked. With the pandemic, some of the restaurants have downsized. Some of them have opened up virtual kitchens. But with this, we have to work with the delivery partners. Is there any way the banks can come in and support these restaurants that have downsized or moved into virtual kitchens? Some even from their own restaurants are running a secondary kitchen as well. You know, instead of giving that big discount or the commission that the delivery partners take, how can the banks, besides discounts, come in and maybe encourage direct delivery from the customer to get the cash flows coming directly to the restaurant? create some kind of a loyalty scheme, or maybe again give free delivery if they were to call the restaurant directly, and move the customer base to come to order direct from the restaurant, which would be a big help to the players, to the restaurants at the moment, because we are struggling and being at the mercy of the delivery partners is not really beneficial, because even on a smaller scale, the bigger commission paid out does not help us at all. This is where the banks can actually come into play and help the restaurant stand up again.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, payment gateways, the portal,
Yeah.
and
Unfortunately, we don't have any other delivery platforms here for today, but I think we'll have a discussion later on with them. But any from the panel wants to? Yeah.
Nista, if I can, I think a lot of restaurant owners here, so maybe one of the things we all need to think about is post the pandemic, there is a lot of disruption, right? So probably it's time to rethink all our strategies. But if you look at it from a consumer's point of view, they kind of exist in three spaces, right? So it's about where do you really pivot to. So for example, a consumer, they say, exists at home, in office, and we also call this third place. That might be Darshana's or Harpo's restaurant. But I think that third place is increasingly diminishing to a certain extent. And the reason for that is probably one fundamental influencer, and that's the kids at home. So if you're a restaurant, think about the opportunity you have to do a lot with these kids, because they actually influence what you buy. The car you buy, the phone you buy, the stuff you eat. I can tell you, with my own experience, my kids basically determine where I kind of drive to for my food sometimes. So I think maybe that's an opportunity. Maybe post-pandemic, you can think about how can we use the power of influence of these kids? How can you engage as restaurants in the various scheme of things that we mentioned, and get them to kind of experience it and stop this whole conversation around value.
Yeah. The question was, can you guys use your muscle to negotiate something better for the restaurants with regard to delivery platforms? Is
Exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Because our customer base has the power of this influence. So we can tap into some of these different, it's about looking at it differently. You might not really get the value today, maybe not tomorrow, but I think it's something that we need to do in terms of sustainability. Some of these things might take time because it's post-pandemic recovery you're talking about, whether it's a V or a U or a whatever. But I guess we got to kind of think maybe about how we approach it. If you think that the delivery is not going to be the best way of getting things.
Yeah. Okay, I know Darshan has been waiting for a question, so he's taking my role. Please go ahead. Yeah.
So let me try to explain a situation where deliveries are concerned. Someone orders through the app, we are paying a big commission out, and the food gets delivered. If you can come up with a very, very affordable payment gateway, so that we can tell our customer, go there and pay, then we get to use other ways of delivering the food. So right now, I think manually we would take a credit card machine to that person's house and get this thing, and that machine has to come back to us. So if we use delivery systems that are there for a fixed amount, if we can get that payment gateway that is affordable to all operators, that is one. Secondly, your digital banking platforms. I know there are so many names, even telcos are getting into it. I see you come to us and all of you have one different machine. Eventually, our tiny little cashier point has 3 of these. If you can again code it in a way that we have one card like Visa and Master does nowadays, because one time that also was 3 machines. So then we are all moving to a cashless society. You are going to benefit either way. Customers are going to use their cards at our restaurants. So even if you give a discount or not, eventually with personal hygiene of money, paper, coins, all that's going to play, no one's going to be using cash. So I think card usage is the future. How do we discount, how we add value? Things are open for discussion. How we collect money without the customer physically being in our location, that is going to be a game changer for us, so that we can send the food through somebody and not do a wire transfer. So I think those things, if you can come up with some simple solutions that are affordable, because payment gateways are expensive, and I think that will help all of us a lot.
Okay.
Hasrat, you like-
Yeah, Hasrat, yeah.
Darshan,
And then
good
I want
point.
Rajesh to intervene here as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's working.
good point. Good point that was raised by you. In fact, I was going to bring this up. You spoke of POS machines being there, and we all know plastic is growing. The state wants to grow plastic. We want to get into a cashless society. We are still below 10% plastic penetration or digital cash, where most countries are now above 50% in the world. So there we have a long way to go. So one of the most important things that all of us collectively, with the patronage of central bank, has launched is the QR. We have a national QR platform, and all of us are partners to that, and we are very aggressively promoting. Right? If you take POS machines, maybe the total universe is about 50, 60,000. Right?
No, 78,000 roughly.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's about 78,000.
About 78,000. But the QR is almost double already within a space of 1 year or so. So that's where the restaurateurs or the association can help us to promote the QR. You don't need any space. You just have to have just one stand, or you can have in your phone, the cashier phone, and any bank, any app can make a payment, right? And then at this point of time, the interest or the fee is very
The merchant discount, the
MDR
MDR
is
for
only
Lanka
0.5% at the moment, right? So this is one of the ways that restaurants can embrace technology, embrace payment, which the banks are pursuing.
But is this QR code universal now?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's actually, it's called Lanka QR, which is spearheaded by central bank. So it's the common QR for the country. Each different banks have their own apps where you can use whatever accounts you have, irrespective of the kind of merchant that is there. So that will take out your first question, having so many POS machines, and your MDR or the merchant discount rate is much more cheaper than what you give for cards, right? Then the second one, to answer to your question on the payment gateways, yes, on the payment gateways also you use the same kind of mechanism. With the Lanka QR plus certain other developments, you will have kind of payment gateways available for up and coming businesses at a lower rate. Now, being this is a common forum, I don't want to talk about it, but I would like to personally talk to you. We have one solution which is already there, which is catered to both e-commerce markets as well as startup businesses. So those kind of things I'm pretty sure all the banks are doing. But I come back to Nissa, pardon me for my first statement that I made. Yeah. How fast we gallop and go depends on the overall objective of the institution and what we stand for. Yeah. I believe that the starting point of changing that is there. Yeah. And then you start these kind of things coming in much more faster into the market, but it's happening.
Yeah, thanks. Rajesh, yes.
Nista, can I take a minute?
Yeah.
One more point is the question was raised whether banks can provide a payment gateway at a lower rate, right? Yes, we can certainly look at. Definitely, we can talk to the card schemes and negotiate the rates. We can look at it. But we need to understand the customer sentiment. Are customers going to shop website by website for each restaurant and decide? Right? The ecosystem is made by the two companies, whether it's PickMe or Uber, to have everything under one roof, right? You go there, you get the total drop down of various things. Then you decide, okay, which family member wants Indonesian, which family member wants Chinese. I mean, it goes down to that level at times, right? And you order. So if the Restaurants Association can make this composite website as an aggregator, then it's a matter of a bank or two just plugging the IPG. Yep. Right? So everything is in one sheet. You go to the Colombo Restaurants Association or so, you have all the restaurants published, all the dishes are there. One of us can give the IPG at a nominal fee, one or two, just as a backup. Right? Any card can be used easily, and all of us can promote this website in our communication. Now log on to there is a certain website. You get this month, and then you have the value adds, the promotions. Right, the Indonesian week or the Malaysian week, likewise. So even Darshan will have his crab prepared in a Malaysian style, and Harpo will have his dishes in a Malaysian style. Whatever, I'm just throwing some ideas, right? So likewise, we can add value. We will certainly promote. Banks are good at promoting offers. We'll give that support to the restaurants, but there has to be some collaboration happening at that end, which we can plug in.
Yeah, I think we have taken the first step of collaboration today. So excellent.
Very good.
Rajesh, it's a quick one.
Yeah. So let me try to answer, Darshan, kind of add to what the bankers have told. So the first question you asked was on the different POS machines that you have. So as a scheme, we are working with banks all these partner banks here, to come out with a concept called soft POS, right, which essentially converts your smartphone into a card accepting machine. Right, it's as simple as that. You have a smartphone, you download an app, and boom, you can take any Master, Visa, Amex, whatever. So that's point one. That kind of addresses the first challenge you were talking about. The second one on the ubiquity and the acceptance of the QR code. So typically the way QR code works is it encompasses all the schemes. So even Master is an active participant, Visa is an active participant. All of us work very closely with the regulator to promote QR, and obviously with our partner banks here. So QR is definitely an option for you to consider. So you have a choice. And on the PG, and I absolutely love what Hasrat said, it is a question of choice, right? Again, look at yourself as a consumer. What does Pick Me or Uber Eats offer? It gives me all the restaurants at the click of my app. If you can come up with something like this, I'm sure banks will be more than happy to facilitate acceptance of electronic payments.
And you would be able to negotiate with those two parties also better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So then you're negotiating with them as an equal partner then, and not as a delivery partner.
Okay.
Something we learned.
Good. I'm happy that we sort of fixing problems.
Very good.
Excellent. I just got some feedback from online participants, so let me share this. Why aren't the banks or the industry promoting redeemable point system for healthy eating? Is that being looked at? Are you giving rewarding for healthy eating? Healthy eating. That's one. Whether the industry is not looking at it and rewarding it, okay? So I know there are lots of new restaurants coming up, right? So whether that's being looked at. And then in terms of building loyalty, one was about dine with the chef or have a chef's table for loyal customers and add value in that sense. So 2 points from an online person. Thank you very much. Any more questions before we wrap it up? We have just exceeded the time.
There's one there.
Okay.
Nista, should we answer that question? About
Which one? On the LDD, yeah, please.
Yeah, definitely. Banks all have reward schemes. And I'm sure, I know for a fact we are, and I'm sure the other banks also have restaurants in the loyalty scheme. So customers who go and dine out can redeem those points in those platforms. Some are online, some are voucher based.
Yeah.
In terms of health, food, maybe it's a fad. I'm not too sure. It doesn't apply to me. We as a bank haven't gone on that path per se to give special discounts, but we can always consider, if you know the party, we can always look at them. Anyone would like to add?
So I think rewards, again, I told you about changing that conversation from
discounts
this to the rewards.
Yeah.
And I think I can say that we do a lot of rewards-based stuff in terms of, we use rewards as our currency.
Okay.
But you haven't done the healthy part. So
healthy part of it. So maybe your next tick the box.
Yeah, adding on to what Hasrat said, I'm also not healthy eating. But in terms of promoting, rewards, like he said, we also have partners, we do redemptions, and also when it comes to healthy eating, we also believe that there is a particular time. For example, month of January is everybody's thinking of health. New gym membership and all that time. So what we do is during that time we talk about health. But I don't think if we speak about healthy eating all 12 months, part of this forum might not be liking it as also. It can't be. You can't have healthy eating for entire 12 months. Of course, there will be a set of consumers who will want only healthy eating. We agree with that. But to make it a choice for everybody, what we do it is from time to time we do healthy. The other times we just open it up and do everything.
Okay, fine.
Yes, next question, yeah.
Yeah, I noticed in the Boston presentation and Rajesh's presentation that over time now, communication with SMSs and emails and stuff is decreasingly not really impactful. But banks have data and you all have direct access. Now from the food and beverage industry, we've shifted to more economical ways of communicating through good content and using social media. But that's pretty much targeting audiences. We still don't know, we're still shooting out there. You guys have access to people who've repeatedly gone and eaten at various restaurants, different cuisines. You have direct access to them. How is the bank now? I mean, in both presentations, they said that they are trying to look at disruptive communication. Are you all looking at, investing or kind of developing your own content, which also can show more experience at the vendors, places, because that is a big expense to us, but some of us do have content which we can share with you, which you could then use as well. But is that something that you all be looking at, improving to kind of getting that customer's attention? Because right now the customer's attention is all over the place when they get so many SMSs, emails. Some of them don't even open their emails. I don't have an answer to that solution, but your teams are huge, so I'm wondering whether they have come up with new ways of communicating such things.
Thank you. So as banks, I think that's the thing that we wake up in the morning and try to crack, to be honest. But the good old SMS still seems to be the order of the day. Honestly, I mean, that comes to all our research. Unfortunately, that's the truth. That's what the consumers still see as abundantly on their face. But we've tried, from geolocation, targeting to proximity-based advertising, all that. But those are virtually been very test and learn cases. But I think what we do probably a bit well, I'm sure all the banks, is we use the power of social media. And we kind of really segment the segment, based on segments, we kind of look at what type of value prop does the restaurant have and target it based on dark posts and stuff like that. So I see it, but they don't see it, kind of thing. So I guess we are testing and learning a lot. To be honest, we haven't really cracked it. I mean, there's a lot more work to be done.
Okay. We need to wrap it up. Thank you very much.